My hometown, part 5. In Lucknow, at the time, you could be a liar, crook, bigot, miser, ugly. That was okay. What you couldn't be was a bore. When we wanted to damn somebody, call him the worst possible name, we would say bore hai. That automatically earned the person pariah status. Such a person was to be shunned like the plague. And I am sorry to report that in our wondrous city there was no shortage of the spices. Boars were pompous, vain, vulgar, tedious, given to self praise and the flaunting of wealth. We had no use for them. A talent to amuse was considered vital. How to tell an amusing story, the precise technique of narration guaranteed to hold an audience was, for us, critical. If this art did not come naturally to an individual, he had to learn it by watching the masters at work. Two or three ground rules were laid out. The amusing story had to be prolonged, but only up to a point so that the punters waited anxiously for the punchline. The narrator had to keep a straight face, no laughing at one's own jokes, which could be relaxed slightly at the climax. The story did not have to be funny in the conventional case. Piquancy, satire, sarcasm, banter, and bad language were also highly appreciated. Among our group, Said excelled in yarn telling. I came a poor second. Perhaps, in retrospect, some of the things we found hilarious then sound a bit stale now. However, at the time, they produced tons of laughter. Sayed cracked one we thought hysterical on the rotund Arun Nehru. Yes, the same Arun Nehru who was Rajiv Gandhi's right hand man for a while before he fell from grace. I say, Arun, you had a close shave. You could have been an elephant. Juvenile? Maybe. Safdar, the genius, produced this classic. A Muslim doctor had recently bought a second hand car which was the pride of his life. He was forever polishing and cleaning it, and naturally, he was a slow and careful driver. Safdar was walking in Hazratganj when he heard the loud horn of the doctor's car. Can I give you a lift, Safdar Bhai? He offered. No, thank you, replied Safdar. I am in a hurry today. Much of the humorous in the jokes quoted is lost in translation. Nevertheless, I thought I would give the reader a flavor of what we deemed funny. The important point to note is not the quality of the jests, but the place humor occupied in our scheme of things. It is said, those who don't laugh and make others laugh are dangerous people. Absolutely true. Lucknow's distinctive culture began to change gradually after partition when hordes of refugees came to settle in the city. They were mainly Punjabis, Sindhis, and Sikhs. They set up small businesses literally on the pavements, ready made garments, watches, kulfi, soft drinks, shoes, dry cleaning, cycles, stationery, cheap sports goods, open air tandooris, biscuits, bread, and egg soon came under their control. And they brought with them the famed refugee resolve to succeed, to make a new life. In other words, they were fiercely competitive. They introduced a revolutionary concept to the existing Lucknow trade, customer satisfaction. This was unheard of in a town where going to a shop or going shopping was an exercise in manners. Instead of the easy indolence, studied procrastination, conversational etiquette, fixed price, that is, bargaining was considered vulgar. Things take time. What is your hurry approach to commerce? These deranged vendors were prompt, eager to make a sale, asked silly questions like, when do you want this by? Price elastic, that is, haggling was encouraged and prepared to go to any length to seal a transaction. For old Lucknow, the refugees arrived at a time when the city's aristocracy, especially the Muslim aristocracy, was taking its first tentative steps towards a difficult adjustment in a conscious effort to make money so that something of the lifestyle they were used to could be maintained. The psychological blow of partition, coupled with the loss of landholdings and talk of egalitarian socialism, forced on them the unhappy conclusion that they could no longer enjoy the comforts of their forefathers. I was privy to some poignant and futile conversations. What should we do now? No one had a clue. Sadly, they retreated into a shell when confronted with the cutthroat competition from the across LOC, that is, these refugees. It was a wise decision. Given their upbringing, they did not stand a chance. In sporting terms, it was a walkover. One of the most heartrending and instructive sights in Lucknow was to observe the Muslim and to some extent the Hindu aristocracy on the run. They retreated further and further into their domestic sanctum sanctorums, that is, the crumbling mansion or estate or palace, fearful of the outside world, a hostile world, a world they did not understand. To survive, they resorted to the only option open to them, that is, they sold their heritage, cars, land, paintings, chandeliers, rare books, furniture, French cutlery, and porcelain. But here too, dignity needed to be preserved. The buyers, usually Hindu traders, were requested to come after dark since it was shaming to sell in the daylight hours. On no account must the neighbors know that Nawab Sahib was bankrupt. In another context, and the state, Satyajit Ray's masterpiece Jal Sagar captures the slow disintegration of the old feudal order perfectly. I remember one of my Muslim friends telling me, Yar, I have sold lots of things, but I didn't regret it. It had to happen. However, last week was my most humiliating. I had to sell my banduk. There were tears in his eyes as he recounted the disgrace. He had been forced to part with the indispensable symbol of his nobility. In these frantic times of globalization, meritocracy, survival of the fittest, the comeuppance of the Nawabs of Lucknow may seem well deserved. In the Lucknow of the 50s, however, it heralded the end of an era, nostalgia for which continues to linger in limited circles. Nothing exemplifies the clash of civilization better than the rise and fall of Kazim and Company, arguably the most famous and the most typical establishment in the city. It was managed by young Nasir Abid, whose entire family had migrated to Pakistan. Being a staunch secularist, he stayed behind, and I am happy to report he is still alive, well and living in Lucknow. Kazim and Company, a watch shop, was situated in the heart of Hazratganj. While it sold and repaired watches insouciantly, it quickly became a salon where one met for gupshup and tea. The ideal and the interesting were instantly drawn to it, and it quickly became the adda for the intellectuals, pseudo intellectuals, and aspiring intellectuals. Kazim and Company possessed a soul bearded, ancient, stooped, sherwani clad mechanic who appeared to have come out of central casting. He marked his arrival and departure with exquisite and elaborate salutations, which reminded one of what old world courtesy was really like. He never spoke out of turn and always seemed immersed in his work. Hunched over a timepiece or a wristwatch with his glasses, Nasir claimed he was the best watch mechanic west of Suez. One day, when I was present at the shop, a Muslim gentleman who knew Nasir casually arrived with a defective wristwatch. He gave it to Nasir and asked if it could be mended. Nasir handed it over to his prized mechanic and inquired, Do you think it can be repaired? The watch was briefly inspected. Yes, I can repair it, answered the mechanic. The owner of the watch was pleased. He exchanged a few pleasantries with Nasir and left. He did not ask what was wrong with the watch, when it would be ready, or how much it would cost to repair. These mundane details might be important but were never spoken about. It will come as no surprise that customers from Kazim and Company soon began drifting away to the super efficient neon lit establishments of the refugees. Happily, Nasir went down in style. He did not put up a fight. Thank you for listening. Two or three ground rules were laid out. The amusing story had to be prolonged, but only up to a point so that the punters waited anxiously for the punchline. Punter. Punter means a speculator, a gambler. The psychological blow of partition, coupled with the loss of land holdings and talk of egalitarian socialism, forced on them the unhappy conclusion that they could no longer enjoy the comforts of their forefathers. Egalitarian, Egalitarian. Egalitarian means a person who supports the principle of equality to all. In these frantic times of globalization, meritocracy, survival of the fittest, the comeuppance of the Nawabs of Lucknow may seem well deserved. Comeuppance, comeuppance means deserved fate. Kazim and Company, a watch shop, was situated in the heart of Hazratganj. While it sold and repaired watches insouciantly, it quickly became a salon where one met for gupshup and tea. Insouciant. Insouciant means showing a casual lack of concern, untroubled, unconcerned. Salon, Salon, salon means a kind of reception room, a small drawing room. Thank you for listening.